বাংলাদেশ ডেভেলপমেন্ট আপডেট ২০২৩ নামের এই রিপোর্টে তুলে ধরা হয়েছে জিনিসপত্রের দাম বৃদ্ধি, আর্থিক খাতের অস্থিরতা এবং বৈশ্বিক নানা চাপের বিষয়টি কঠিন করে তুলেছে কোভিড পরবর্তী বাংলাদেশের অর্থনীতির পুনরুদ্ধার, যার প্রভাবও পড়েছে দেশের মোট দেশজ উৎপাদন বা জিডিপি প্রবৃদ্ধিতে বছর শেষে, যা কমতে পারে বলেই মনে করছে বিশ্বব্যাংক।
And I believe that you will see in the report and perhaps in the presentation how it is so critical to look at the nuances across this, looking at what happened, for instance, between West region and the eastern part of the country, where there was a divide and this divide is closing. You will see that poverty has increased faster in urban areas, for instance, or at least the growth have slowed down in urban areas. So there are a number of nuances, but the bottom line is that at this stage, what Bangladesh should do, and in our view, and I will come back to that, my second point about reforms, but in my view also, it would be important for the country to just look at how to be more ambitious in terms of poverty goals. And I mentioned earlier that one of the way we measure extreme poverty, those who have $2.15 a day purchasing power parity 2017, but one may say, well, we are aspiring to be the upper middle income country by 2031 and a rich country by 2041. So why don't we get a higher goal objective when it comes to poverty? And one of such goals could be, why don't we set now the bar at $3.65 a day? So that will be, for instance, one of my, the way I would like to encourage maybe the country to take on that front and move on. But again, let me now come to the second point I want to raise with all of you, which is the part about reforms. What led Bangladesh to achieve such strong growth and to reduce poverty was obviously sound policies and taking advantage of globalization and external trade export. Now it will be very important for the country. Reforms will be sustained, but reforms not only should be sustained, one environment when things are a lot more difficult.
বিশ্বব্যাংক মনে করছে মূল্যস্ফীতি আর আর্থিক খাতের অস্থিরতা প্রবৃদ্ধির পাশাপাশি দেশে দারিদ্র্য বিমোচনকেও বাধার মুখে ফেলবে। সমস্যা সমাধানে বৈদেশিক মুদ্রার বিনিময় হার বাজার ভিত্তিক করার পরামর্শও সংস্থাটির।
In our view, more flexibility will really help on a number of fronts. And right now, we look at the level of reserve, it is declining, I mean, in a very steady way. And I think flexibility will help in that regard in a very significant way. When it comes to inflation, which is extremely high, what can we do? We want to make sure that monetary policies are actually adequate to address inflation. One of such instruments will be the interest rate, for which the cap we have right now on lending rate should be lifted.
নির্বাচনের কারণে সম্ভাব্য রাজনৈতিক অস্থিরতা দেশের অর্থনীতিকে কতটা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত করতে পারবে এ প্রশ্নের সরাসরি উত্তরও দেন সংস্থাটির আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি।
Clearly, yes, with election comes uncertainties. I mean, that is something that is known around the world. Investors will maybe wait a little bit to see what will happen. So, and you know, Bangladesh is not an isolated case. So that is a given. Now that said, I mentioned that it is important to not lose sight about the economy and the impact of the economy on the people, and how reforms that are critical should not be delayed. In that regard, it seems to me, I mentioned that earlier, we do see reforms happening. Whether now those reforms need to be faster, that is what we talk about here. So, and I will come back at some point to two aspects that were, for instance, discussed. One being around the financial account and overall, I mean, the issue basically around balance of payment. I think you are very right. In my view, first of all, there is a very important point you made again and again, which is that a more flexible exchange rate, as we have seen somewhat, my colleague Nasmus had mentioned how much we have seen a depreciation of the taka, for instance, over the past 12 months or 15 months. But clearly, I think more flexibility will help the country in a number of ways. Remittances just today are going through different channels, may come through the formal channels, banking sector.
নানা ক্ষেত্রে বাংলাদেশ এগিয়ে গেলেও বৈষম্য এখনো প্রকট। গ্রামের তুলনায় শহরে এই বৈষম্য বেশি বলেও রিপোর্টে তুলে ধরেছে সংস্থাটি।
And the World Bank would be very pleased to support.
গোলাম কাদের রবু, ATN নিউজ, ঢাকা।
That agenda. We mentioned